Focus. Focus. It was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart who said, "In my eyes and ears, the organ is the king of instruments." The glorious sound of the mighty pipe organ, with its thousands upon thousands of individually speaking pipes. No greater glory has been known on God's earth than its majesty. It brings beautiful music to the multitudes, and greater glory to God. What is the story of this magnificent instrument? How did the organ come to reign over the musical world? Early man knew only the music of his own voice, accompanied by a rhythm produced with sticks and stones. In biblical times, the voice of man was often accompanied by pipes. The Romans combined many pipes together into the water-powered hydraulis, which excited the populace at public spectacles. The organs of the Middle Ages were primitive. These early organs had very few stops and required only one bellows boy. Whereas the larger instruments of the 16th century required many men to supply the organs with its hunger for ever more air. The pipe organ was shunned by the early church, which forbade the use of organs in services, for it was understood to be a worldly contrivance, which aroused earthly passions, and was already long associated with ungovernable festivals and mayhem. And yet, today, the pipe organ stands proudly at the very center of man's religious and civic life. The music of the pipe organ marks the most important occasions of our lives. But what can account for the mighty organ's awesome power and capacity to enthrall and inspire? Behind its stately architectural presence and dazzling ornaments are a host of ingenious mechanisms requiring the sacrifice of animals. Sheep for the bellows, elephants for ivory, horses for glue. It demands the ongoing toil of men to work its bellows, maintain its workings, and, of course, it requires a dedicated organist. Through time, the organ has placed ever-increasing demands upon the organist, stacking several manuals to occupy his hands, sprouting pedals for his feet, and presenting a bewildering array of controls for the use of all four limbs. While behind the console, the wind chests strain to dam a reservoir of pressurized air. Soldierly ranks of pipes, some 10 times higher than a man, stand ready to speak. The music of the organ is projected up long vertical pipes so that music may be sent heavenward. Once good and evil were polarized by the ejection of the devil from the kingdom of heaven, a powerfully charged field was created through the plane of the living. As the glory of music rises from earth, the force between good and evil draws melody through any existing musical conveyance. It is in our nature and right that we worship God and sing His glories. But as the number of inanimate musical conduits increases, the flow of glory is directed away from human beings and diverted through these musical culverts. We stand now at a critical point, edging toward a fall from which we cannot recover. The majesty of the pipe organ has confused and misdirected parishioners who attend services in the mistaken notion that they go to worship God, when, in fact, they go to worship the organ. After all, it can instill fear in the hearts of the strong and the weak, the righteous and the sinner. And large modern organs are increasing in number every day. The deleterious effects are most noticeable in those who work closely with these instruments. Just as the glass harmonica player is driven slowly insane by its tones and poisoned with lead crystal, the hatter slowly loses his sight and his sanity to mercury vapor, and the nuclear worker inevitably succumbs to the deadly half-life of radioactive waste. In the popular imagination, organists are perceived as lunatics, creeps, ghouls, and demon outsiders, exiled from the musical community and isolated in cramped and cornered conditions. It is not that the organ attracts these kinds of individuals. Rather, it is what the organ does to them. Perhaps this is why 9 out of 10 organists, church musicians as well as secular, are homosexuals. Homosexuals, who of course are well known for their artistic temperament and love of soft cushions. In fact, the effects of the field surrounding the organ are so profound that most organists harbor the notion that it was not Jesus of Nazareth, but Johann Sebastian Bach, who was the Son of God. Organists, as a matter of routine, are forced to go without sleep, nourishment, fresh air, and sunlight, as they endure lifelong indenturement to their king. The lay public is in awe of the organist and his apparent mastery over the king of instruments. They fear and respect him, and he has little difficulty extracting small sums and favors from them. Yet in truth, the organist does not master the organ, but it is the organ that controls the organist. His arms flailing, his little legs pumping. He is a marionette, obedient to his master. Alongside the organ and its captive servant stands the choir, with its God-given musical relationship of one man, one voice. In comparison to the choir, the organ is far bigger, louder, in every way demonstrating its superiority, threatening to drown the human voice with its inanimate bombast. Regiments of pipes expropriating the ether threaten to suck the very breath from the unaided voices of human beings. Although the pipes speak with the same air as we do, the organ need never breathe. Rather, it sustains a continuous inhalation, incessant, voluminous, all the while ready to blast a volcanic litany. This tyrant king has insinuated itself into the apse, audaciously anticipating the unseating of God himself. Outside the house of God, the secular unbeliever seeks after fleeting pleasures and pastimes accompanied by the mellifluous sound of the theater organ. Matinee goers crowd into the darkness of cavernous movie palaces to gape at a silvery screen and escape into the solace of foolish dreams. While he neglects his daily duties, the cinema-goer sits couched in a lush bed of swelling chords, lulling him into a state of drowsy submission. When the theater organ is not drugging the listener into a life-sapping slumber, it parades a cavalcade of klaxon horns, whistles, noisemakers, and indignities of all varieties. But behind its gay painted face lurks the self-same demon. In fact, organs have invaded all centers of our civic life, from baseball parks, skating rinks, even nationally broadcast television game shows. Today, sophisticated electronics have made possible a previously unimaginable proposition: an organ in every home. The modest expense of these electronic organs allows for its rapid spread. However, the full harmful effect of these new electronic instruments is not yet known. Can mankind reclaim his birthright as the sole channel of God's greatest gift? Some heroic individuals have taken matters into their own hands, often against strong opposition, and even against the law of the land. Throughout history, men of destiny have challenged the rule of this tyrant king by destroying organs and houses of worship, though even the Puritan Lord Protector married his daughters to the music of an organ in his own home. In more recent times, daring property developers and their accountants have made significant strides against this menace. Some modern composers have steadfastly refused to write music for the pipe organ, or have attempted to jam the organ with problematic avant-garde devices. But there are those who work tirelessly to ensure the continuing dominance of the pipe organ. So-called preservation societies across the world have formed international alliances, amassing vast funds and achieving positions of high influence. And so the organ's reign persists. Man can only blame himself, the devil, and his own wretched ancestors and progeny. Would that he were able to transcend his vanity and beg God's forgiveness for coronating this beast in the loft. This unholy flu. This debasing narcotic. Shall mankind continue to pay the piper and let this dreadnought call the tune? Shall we simply face the music